food safety is resonating in the media. We always eat because safe, nutritious food is essential for good health and life. A lot of livelihoods are food dependent. We patronize them and assume our food is safe. Experts say food safety is the science that ensures our food chain is good for consumption and trade. Bridges is curious since we have always eaten and we're alive because what we eat is seemingly safe. Where is there so much happening around food safety now, we ask? What then constitutes safe food in terms of production, preparation, transportation, storage, and sale? What is the global best practice in the food processing chain? Do Nigerians fare well in food safety? How do we get the best out of our food in terms of production, handling, storage, packaging, consumption, even for trade and export? Food handling obviously affects the health and wealth of Nigerians, so how can we do it right? What risks are inherent in wrong growth, processing, preparation, storage, transportation, and consumption? Bridges found we have a national policy on food safety, and we want to discover its relevance to us as individuals and as a nation. Therefore, this episode will discuss these and other questions that our viewers have been pondering on, and as well as us. Welcome. I'm Mujiba Kojola, and this is Bridges, still working for a sustainable society. On this episode, we have on the panel, on my extreme right, Mr. Fubara Chukwu, who is the chairman of the National Food Safety Committee. So you're welcome on Bridges. He also works with the Federal Ministry of Health.
Thank you.
And then we have a food expert. We call him food safety expert. He's from the UNIDO EU-funded National Quality Infrastructure Program. So you're welcome on Bridges.
Thank you very much.
And today should I just say an extension of the panel, because everyone on this side of the divide is an expert. We have from the academia, we have from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, we have an entrepreneur who is working, we have a public health expert, we have from the raw materials department. So we have a conglomerate of people who work with food. Thank you very much for coming on Bridges. We'll go straight to the first question to start. You know, we have said, do we state that Nigeria, you know, are we truly in the process of food safety, or do we have a food safety culture that we really don't have to worry ourselves about any other thing? So why is everybody focusing on food safety? Why is it important? Any of you can start.
Okay, thank you very much. Food safety is very important to our health. One, because when we eat unsafe foods, there are over 200 diseases that are associated with contaminated food. And the severity of these diseases vary from mere stomach disturbance for a few days to death. And depending on the person who is the victim, and depending on the health status, he could die, and he could be weakened, his immune system could be compromised, and he could die. Yeah. And in recent times in Nigeria, we have cases where we have to be concerned about food safety. Right.
I'll just go to Fubara immediately. Is this something that we should really be concerned with, you know, looking at it from the perspective of Federal Ministry of Health and being chairman of the National Food Safety Committee? Is it a public health concern?
It is indeed a serious public health concern because, as it were, yes, we have been in the process of food safety, but the process has not been at such a level that we deliver what is the desirability. The essence is to reduce to a very minimum level the incidence of foodborne disease outbreaks. In as much as we keep having this, and which we have our own share globally, as it were, then that is why the stakeholders are doing so much that they are doing, and that is why the Federal Ministry of Health equally is giving much concern, because it has to do with the health of the people.
Considering that, yes, you're working on the National Quality Infrastructure Program. Now, how does food dovetail into that? Food safety dovetails into that.
Food safety is a critical component of the NQIP, that is the National Quality Infrastructure Program for Nigeria. And part of what NQIP is concerned is to build capacity, to create awareness and build capacity among stakeholders to ensure that they do what is right and they develop a culture of safe food practices across the nation.
Okay, we're looking at food safety within the ambit of consumption and also trade. Maybe I'll quickly go to my audience, and any of you can start actually. Would you say, well, they say that Nigeria has a huge potential, not just for what we can consume and sell in country, but also that we can export out. But in recent times we've had problems, even say with our beans, for example. Egusi has been rejected because of some findings in them. Maybe I'd like to start with you, Prof. Why do we need to worry about what we export out and what we eat here? Yes?
Well, it's important because to get our foodstuff marketable outside, we need to go through the normal processes. Quite often, most of our exporters, probably because they don't know what to do, they go through the back door. They use people that are not competent. And so they just give their goods to somebody who is an agent, and the fellow backs the whole stuff, crates and sends across. And then you get to the other end where they are looking at the quality and they are mindful of the safety of the food, particularly when they know it's going to go out to the public. And at that stage is rejected. And then you begin to ask yourself, what did you do wrong? But the truth is that if we go through the normal processes, NAFDAC is there. In NAFDAC, we have the National Inquiry Point for food safety. The inquiry point is to release information, to give you information about the specific goods you want to export. They should be able, they will definitely give you the regulations that are required by the guidelines by the other country, and they expect you to abide. Sometimes it may not even just be the end product, it may be from the farm all the way. We're talking about pesticide residues. Sometimes it's from the farm, applied on the plant, applied when the food is ready. For example, we talked about the beans the other time. And it's the residue had been applied from hand to hand all the way, and the level became so outrageous. So when we do the right thing well, and we use the people that we're supposed to contact with as an exporter, I think we will get it right. That's the problem.
Yes, and so because we have a huge potential, you know,
yes,
to be able to, especially now that the country is looking beyond oil. Right. You're a public health expert. Yes, ma'am. And what's your concern when we are talking about food safety?
Thank you very much. I think when we're talking about food safety, I'm going to bring it back home. You know, she's spoken about the across the boards. I think the Environmental Health Sanitation Department have actually gone silent and into stupor. And, you know, that really makes my heart, you know, really, really bleeds, because I think the fundamental, you know, effect of, you know, food safety in this country is the fact that the environment in which we process and we prepare the food for the end beneficiaries, the eater, it's a major concern, because that's where we pick up the diseases from, that's where we pick up the bugs from, and everything. So I know we have an environmental health department at both the Federal Ministry of Health and the Federal Ministry of Environment.
So you're advocating that they should be...
There should be a task force, you know. The task force, it has always been, but I think it went, like I said, it went, you know, into hibernation. So I think it should be revived or rejuvenated, whichever is the most appropriate word, you know, from both ministries, because whatever reasons has kept them back, you know, in the backstage, I think they should be brought back to the front lead, because we need this.
I can see that our expert from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is eager to take you on. You know, because he deals with quarantine. Yes, sir. Can we hear from you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We in the Prime Minister of Agriculture, especially the Veterinary Public Health Division, we take it as a duty to make sure that we create a lot of awareness in terms of hygienic practices. Like in the dairy sector, for instance, we know a lot of people consume a lot of dairy products, and majority of this milk comes from the rural herders, from the rural Fulani people. And we know the way they process and handle the milk, which is very unhygienic. So we do a lot of studies, a lot of training on these Fulani people to make sure that they produce hygienic milk. And also the issue of our abattoirs. We all know how our abattoirs are looking, how meat is being processed, how animals are being slaughtered on bare floor. So we also take it as a duty to make sure that we interface.
Is there an improvement in that? Because some of us have actually gone off beef because of the handling of processing beef in Nigeria.
Yes, there's a lot of improvement because we do a lot of advocacy, a lot of training to the butchers. We go to them, we go to the abattoirs, we conduct meat inspections, antemortem and postmortem inspections to show
Going
them how to handle
how
the
do
meat.
we ensure, going forward, how do we ensure that we are near 100% sure of what we eat from these products?
Yeah, how we can be sure is in terms of making sure the infrastructure in the abattoir, for instance, are there and they are in good shape, like water supply, like the sanitation of the environment, like handling of the meat, transportation of the meat from the abattoirs to the selling points and so on and so forth. So that chain, we should make sure that all the hygienic best practices are maintained so that at the end of the day, when consumers buy meat, they buy meat, not poison to eat.
Thank you very much. I'll go straight to you, ma'am. Let us know you.
My name is Biodun Obaki. I'm the CEO of Bioba Kitchen and Ventures.
Okay.
Now,
thank you. Yeah, in Abuja. Now, you have been in the, we say, both the processing and the investment. Now, what is it that you've seen? Share your experience with us so that others too can see why food safety is important.
Food safety is a process, and it starts from the source. Where we are concerned is the processing and the production. We ensure in our kitchen that we buy quality. The kind of quality in the sense of the stuff of what we are buying. Like this beans issue, the preservation of the beans, when you go to the market, you can easily know if it's preserved well or not. For example, you have some beans that already have a lot of ants, a lot of dust. As a kitchen person, you will avoid to buy this kind of thing. For example, too, the fish, when we go to buy, we make sure that if it's frozen fish, it's well done, because you have some that are already smelling. You avoid buying the kind of thing that will give you a bad end product. Also, the kind of kitchen that we run is we do a process of elimination by dilution. In the process of preparing, you have water in such a good amount to wash in several times, so that if there are parasites or contamination, you wash off severally.
Are you speaking from the point of view that you are a scientist yourself?
Okay, yes.
Okay, so that's some science out there. Yes.
So you have to wash several times in large volume of water, vegetables, even the meat, the fish, and the act of cooking in bits is what we do to achieve food safety.
I just want to ask you, we also have problems, I'm sure, particularly women here and some men out there who cook, that vegetables these days, you want to blanch your vegetables and you find out the vegetable has gone brown. Is that a cause for concern? Do you witness that as well?
Of course.
What do you think is responsible?
The act of cooking, many of us, we get it wrong. The temperature that we cook is very, very important. Like you don't even need to boil the vegetable before you cook it. Once you ensure a thorough washing, you put it straight into your ingredients or into the pot. But because of the old system, the ways we are used to, the habits is one of our issues in this part of the world. We are brought up in a way that we overcook everything. So education is helping us to a great extent to know that there are some nutrients that you don't even need to cook at all if you want to enjoy it better.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Let's know you, please.
I'm Dr. Mrs. Roslyn Enwerozo. I am the representative of Raw Materials Research and Development Council in the National Food Safety Management Committee.
Wonderful. So we're looking at food safety within the context of consumption, like the last speaker has alluded to. Let's look at it moving to that of export for trade. You know, what's your take here?
Yes, raw materials or agri-produce or whatever, or even solid minerals for export. Let's take food, because we're talking about food now. Whatever that is destined for export, efforts must be made to ensure that good agricultural practice is observed at every stage of the value chain, from the selection of the seed to the planting, to the handling, to weeding, harvesting, even storage, even transportation to the warehouses. And wherever there's a gap along the chain, then there's a problem. You may grow your crops very well, harvest them well, and then in storage, there's mold. In storage, there may be rodent droppings. There's a problem. So at every stage of the value chain, we must get it right so that this issue of reject of our produce will come to an end. Thank you.
Yes. I know that at the back you want to contribute. Yes. Okay. Yes, and let's know you.
My name is Femi Stephen from Federal Ministry of Health.
Yes. We're talking to food safety. Well, as I'm sure that you are a public health expert, if I may say. Foodborne diseases, people don't pay so much attention to it, but is it a severe thing? Is it a challenge in our society? Because if we look at foodborne disease, waterborne disease, non-communicable diseases, everything, you know, all these diseases, do we really must do something like yesterday on food safety?
Yes, if I may answer it with a word, yes. It's very important because food safety or foodborne illnesses have been neglected over the years. And we need a quick answer to it right now because, as I said, we need to have done something yesterday, not today. But as it is, we have to start doing something. And that's where the committee comes into play. I know the Federal Ministry of Health and other members of the National Food Safety Management Committee has done a lot to move forward with it. Because if you look at the incidences of foodborne illnesses in Nigeria right now, it's a lot. It's a big burden, and it's been swept under the carpet. It's only when we hear something like Lassa fever or cholera outbreak or things like that, then everybody sits up. But until then, everybody sits back and forgets about foodborne illnesses. Okay. But they are very, very, very severe, and they need to be dealt with accordingly. Thank you.
Going forward, what should we be looking at? What kind of infrastructure should be put in place to ensure that the food value chain does not break in terms of you know, being healthy and also being able to export for trade?
Yeah, we need proper education of our food handlers, like the lady from my left, from health correctly said, from the hygienic practices, if it's just the food handlers that we patronize on a daily basis, and then we're looking at, I'm interested more in exporting our product because out there, many of the food produced in Nigeria are being sourced for, and we need to package it correctly. And the best thing is for us to know what to do and how to do it. There are different outlets. I mean, there are different persons that can help in the training. For example, the NQI project is promoting the food safety and the different practices and trainings that will be necessary for you to be able to get your food product in the proper stage for it to be exportable. Okay. So we need good education from this angle.
Do you agree with her? I'll just move the microphone back. Yes. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I do.
That we should, in terms of processing for export now.
Exactly.
Yeah, what should we do?
In terms of processing for export, I think NAFTA comes in here. You know, NAFDAC needs to like really get it right about actually enabling the small and medium enterprises, because it's not just, export doesn't just come from the big ones. You know, the small ones are really coming up in Nigeria, and you would really agree with me. And they need, you know, people like the facility or the policymakers like NAFDAC to really encourage them and strengthen their efforts, you know, by actually getting their registration right on time, you know, getting them registered on time, assisting them and giving them every support to ensure that what they are producing is right. At least I'm talking about the end products now, you know, because we have loads of nice, you know, confectionaries from Nigeria now, you know, that you could do. So, you know, with NAFDAC helping to get that straight with the registration, so that to ensure that safe foods are being exported, I think that would be nice.
Very important. Now we are looking at from the farm to the table. What should we expect from Federal Minister of Agriculture? I know a lot is being done now, but look at particularly the small farmers. How are you getting to them to ensure that their products are the ones that is good for our health and also good for export?
I think, as the previous speakers have said, I think the major issue is the issue of creating awareness. We have to create a lot of awareness on the farmers on the need for good hygienic practices. That is very key. And then the other thing is the issue of enforcement of laws. We have to enforce our laws. We have to make sure that whoever violates the issue of hygienic practices should be sanctioned. I think these are the very key issues.
Very, very important. Yes, ma'am. What has made you a success story in food processing and food selling and all that you do?
One of the important points is hygiene, even in the kitchen. The way we prepare food, the cooks, the appearances, the etiquettes, like washing hands as many times as possible. We make it even possible for zinc in the restaurants, so that customers that comes in, they can even wash their hands before making their own order. And when they want to eat and after eating, with liquid soap, you know, just to ensure, because the hands can take in a lot of things into the stomach, and it will be like it's the food that has issues. So washing is very important. Covering of the ear is very key, especially when we talk of Nigerian culture. The way we were brought up, ladies, we are supposed to cover our head in the kitchen. In terms of the system we run, we have a type of kitchenette where the food is laid and preserved by steaming hot all the time, so that it will not go sour or development of other bacteria that, you know, may from the air. And we also have some kind of insect killers. One of the points that we experience in our restaurants or kitchen system is the issue of making sure the flies and other things are kept in control. And I want to appreciate the environmental people at this junction, but we just need a kind of a better system of waste disposal, because it's giving us a lot of issues whereby some of these private contractors that are supposed to be picking up the waste from time to time, they have issues with their motors or drivers. 2, 3, 4 days, we have our waste materials packed up there, smelling all around the place. So these are the points that I think the government should rise up to help us.
Thank you. One last word from raw materials before I return to the panelists. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. For the export of raw agro produce, the key is observance of good agricultural practice.
Thank you very much.
Along the value chain. Then for value added or processed foods, good manufacturing practice. Thank you very much. Good
manufacturing practice. Yes, Chairman. What's your say as we end up this edition? I think this conversation will continue, as it were. Yes.
Okay. From the trend of the contributions being made so far, it's obvious that government has a lot of responsibility to discharge in this, as it were, and the government is actually doing it. One of the aspects that was touched here was encouraging the producers, food producers, manufacturers, and so on and so forth. During the recent forum, the Food Safety Investment Forum that took place in Lagos, you will recall that the Honorable Minister of Health, at that forum, during the process when he was going, when the Honorable Ministers in attendance were going around seeing to all the exhibition stands, you recall that he gave a directive. He discovered that there were some
small and medium scale
SMEs that whose products were yet to be registered, and realizing that they were not registered is because they couldn't meet up with whatever the tall orders it may require to get that done. He gave a directive to DG NAFDAC and directed that that all their products, they should process them and get them registered at discount, 50% discount.
As an incentive.
You know, as an incentive, and done within 2 weeks. You can see the kind of, it shows a government that has a concern of such issue as important as food safety. So government is doing, besides providing all the necessary enabling structures that government is doing, though we need to hasten up more than, run faster than we are doing. I think that's the issue.
Yes, our food safety expert.
I think all of us here have listened to all of you and we have said the right things.
I saw you nodding to all.
And I think it is important to say here that food safety is a shared responsibility. Does not belong to one particular agency, nor does it belong to one particular person. It is a shared responsibility between the farmer all through the value chain until it gets to the consumer. That means the consumers have a responsibility to demand for safe food. The producers, including the farmers, have a responsibility to produce safe foods. And the food business operators, the restaurateurs, the caterers, and the manufacturers have a responsibility to manufacture and produce safe foods. And if we all cooperate together, means that we can ensure that the food along the food supply chain is safe.
Thank you very much. I think that wraps it up for this edition of Bridges on Food Safety. But since we eat every day, and it's something that we do as long as God gives us life, this conversation will continue, and I'm sure that in the next episode we'll be able to bring all the regulators and all the other stakeholders together to still discuss on food safety. Until, of course, we get to the promised land on food safety, Bridges will be there to continue to build a bridge of food safety for all, for export and for trade, and indeed for consumption. Thanks for watching.